There is a spare tire riding around in the trunk of your car right now, along with a jack and a wrench. Every single mile you have ever driven has been with that dead weight on board. And the only reason you haul it everywhere is that the 4 tires holding up your vehicle are basically tough rubber bags full of air. One nail can empty one of them in about 30 seconds. Here is what that design actually costs. Roughly 1 in every 5 tires on Earth gets thrown away before it has ever worn out. 12% are scrapped after flats and blowouts. Another 8% are destroyed by uneven wear from running at the wrong pressure. 1 in 5 tires, wasted worldwide, purely because of air. And that doesn't even count the tow trucks, the missed flights, the delivery vans sitting dead on a shoulder while the clock runs, or the fleets that keep whole crews on staff for no other reason than vehicles that keep going flat. Now imagine a tire you could drive a nail straight through and just keep going. No warning light, no pulling over, no kneeling in wet gravel on the shoulder of a highway. That tire already exists. It has already been driven on an ordinary passenger car at 130 kilometers an hour, backed by more than 50 patents. So why is it still not on your car? The answer genuinely surprised me when I dug into it, and it has almost nothing to do with whether these tires work. It has almost everything to do with a factory floor, and it's the reason Chinese manufacturers may end up deciding when you finally get them. Before I show you how, a quick ask. If you want more stories like this, hit like and subscribe. It takes weeks of real digging to put these together, and it genuinely helps keep the channel going. Now, let's get into it. Picture a wheel with the side of the tire sliced away so you can look straight through it. In a normal tire, you'd find an empty chamber full of squeezed air. That air is the thing actually carrying your car. The rubber around it is just a very tough container keeping it trapped in place. It's the design the Michelin brothers came up with back in the 1890s, and it has barely changed since, because squeezed air is springy and light and cheap, and it smooths out a rough road better than almost anything anyone has ever put under a vehicle. Now look through an airless tire instead. There is no chamber at all. What you see is a web of flexible spokes fanning out from the rim to the outer band, sometimes shaped like a honeycomb, sometimes like a row of curved arches, each one molded from a springy engineered plastic or from rubber reinforced with strong fibers. Those spokes are the whole trick, because they do the exact job the air used to do. When the wheel rolls over a bump, the spokes at the bottom, the ones actually touching the road, flex and squash and swallow the hit, then snap back into shape as the wheel keeps turning. The weight rides on structure itself instead of on trapped gas. And because that support is built into the material rather than sealed inside a chamber, there is simply nothing left that can leak or blow out. Put a nail through the tread, and all you have is a tire with a hole in it that keeps working exactly like it did the day before. And this is not one company's science project either. Almost every serious tire maker on Earth has been chasing the same idea from a different angle. Michelin's version for passenger cars pairs an aluminum wheel with rubber reinforced by strong fibers and carries roughly 50 patents worth of engineering behind it. That's the one tested at 130 kilometers an hour. Hankook in Korea builds theirs around a double-arch structure designed to spread heavy loads evenly across the whole tire. And NASA went further than anybody, developing a version for rovers on the Moon and Mars, built around a remarkable nickel-titanium metal that springs back to its original shape no matter how badly you bend it. Because a flat tire on Mars is not a repairable situation, and there is no roadside assistance on the Moon. Here is the detail most people never hear. On some designs, the tread is a separate, replaceable band. When the rubber finally wears out, you swap just that surface and keep the entire structure underneath, the way you'd resole a good pair of boots instead of throwing the whole shoe away. And a replaceable tread means the hardest wearing part can be refreshed without ever rebuilding the wheel. Michelin's own estimate is that killing off flats and pressure problems could stop as many as 200 million tires a year from being scrapped early. That's around 2 million tons of material, roughly the weight of 200 Eiffel Towers, staying out of landfills every single year. So this is not a rough prototype. It is a solved piece of engineering with enormous stakes attached to it, which makes the obvious question even louder. If it works this well, somebody should already be selling it to you. And they tried. About 20 years ago, the car industry took a serious swing at killing the flat tire, spent a fortune on it, put it on hundreds of thousands of cars, and drivers hated it so much that many of them paid money to have it removed. That failure is the whole reason you are reading about airless tires instead of riding on them. So what exactly went wrong 20 years ago, and why does everything about the next chapter come down to a factory floor on the other side of the world? That is the part they are not telling you, and I will show you why in a moment. You have probably heard of run-flat tires, and if you drive a BMW or a Mercedes, there is a decent chance you are riding on them right now. The idea was clever enough on paper. Instead of removing the air, they reinforced the sidewalls so heavily that the tire could hold up the car for another 30 to 50 miles even after losing all its pressure. Enough to get you off the highway and to a shop instead of stranded on the shoulder. Car makers loved it because it meant they could delete the spare tire from the trunk entirely and free up all that space. Then drivers actually lived with them. The romance died fast. The ride got noticeably harsher. They cost 35 to 200% more than a normal tire, some running between $150 and $500 each. They wear out sooner, in some cases up to 6,000 miles earlier. And here is the part that really soured people. Most run flats cannot be patched after a puncture at all. Driving on a deflated one damages the inside in ways that are hard to inspect. So a nail that would have cost a $20 plug on a normal tire now costs an entire new tire. The market reaction was brutal. Dealers report that swapping run flats out for conventional tires is one of the first things many owners do to a new car. As an optional upgrade, uptake was described as negligible. Almost nobody chose them voluntarily. Fleet operators warned tire costs could rise by a quarter. Some car makers have been quietly backing away ever since. Here is the thing most people miss about that failure. It is a gift to anyone building the next tire, because it tells you precisely what the market will and will not tolerate. Drivers proved they want the flat tire problem solved, but they will not accept a worse ride, a higher price, and a tire they cannot repair as the price of solving it. Run flats asked people to pay more for less. An airless tire that hits the right price does the opposite, and that is exactly why the cost question is the whole ballgame. So who actually gets to decide that cost? That is where this story takes a turn almost nobody saw coming. Start with where the Chinese tire industry actually sits today, because it is nowhere near where most Western viewers assume. Sailun just broke into the global top 10 tire brands for the first time ever, shoving out Japan's Toyo, with brand value climbing 13% to over $900 million. Linglong supplies factory tires to Volkswagen, General Motors, and Ford. ZC Rubber operates at a scale that touches every continent. Across the board, Chinese tires sell for 15 to 25% less than European or American equivalents at similar performance. That stopped being a story about cheap knockoffs long ago. It became a story about an entire supply chain inside one country that can fill an order in 30 to 45 days. Now lay the airless tire on top of that. Here is why it suits Chinese manufacturing almost perfectly. A regular tire is an assembly of steel belts, fabric layers, and several rubber compounds stacked together, then cooked. A complicated process with many steps and many ways to get it wrong. Many airless designs are the complete opposite. They are essentially molded. Inject an engineered plastic into a mold, and what comes out the other side is a finished tire. Molding things at enormous volume for almost nothing, while redesigning fast whenever something needs fixing, is exactly what Chinese factories have spent 30 years becoming the best on the planet at. It is the same pattern that played out with solar panels, expensive and out of reach for decades, until Chinese factories built it at scale and the price collapsed through the floor. It happened again with electric car batteries. The breakthrough usually happens somewhere else. The moment the thing gets cheap enough for ordinary people is very often the moment China starts building it. And here is what almost nobody outside the country has noticed. While everyone watches which company puts airless tires on a car first, China quietly skipped that race and went somewhere else entirely. Chinese manufacturers are already turning out airless tires by the enormous batch for scooters, delivery carts, warehouse robots, forklifts, and those little self-driving delivery vehicles rolling around Chinese cities. If you have ever ridden one of the shared bikes parked outside a subway station in Beijing or Shanghai, you have almost certainly ridden on airless tires without noticing. That entire industry quietly switched years ago and simply stopped having flats. Chinese factories sell honeycomb designs made from recyclable material that shrug off sunlight and acid rain and refuse to crack for 5 years in brutal conditions, 500 at a time. There is a reason those vehicles went first, and it has nothing to do with technology. Think about what a flat tire costs a company running 100,000 rental bikes, or a warehouse full of robots. Every vehicle sitting flat earns nothing while somebody must drive out, find it, and fix it. Multiply that across a fleet, and flats stop being an annoyance. They become one of the biggest line items in the operation. Airless tires wipe out that entire cost category overnight, which is why the switch happened fast, at enormous scale, while most people outside China never noticed. Every one of those wheels is practice. Every batch sharpens the mold, cheapens the material, speeds the process. And all of that hard-won experience points straight at the biggest prize in the entire industry, which is the 4 tires sitting under your car. So the technology works, the muscle is there, and the demand is obvious. Which brings us to the honest part. 3 specific problems still stand between you and a tire that cannot go flat, and the third one nobody sees coming. The first problem is heat. A normal tire gets some cooling from the air inside it, and from air moving through the wheel. But an airless tire is a dense structure that flexes constantly. And all that flexing generates heat with nowhere convenient to escape. At forklift and scooter speeds, this matters not at all, which is exactly why those vehicles switched over years ago. But at 75 miles an hour, for 4 straight hours across Nevada in August, it becomes a serious engineering problem. Heat buildup is one of the main reasons these designs have struggled to make the leap from slow vehicles to highway vehicles. The second problem is weight. Swapping air for a physical structure means adding material. So airless tires tend to come out heavier than the ones they would replace, which hurts fuel economy. And on an electric vehicle, where engineers scrap over every single pound to protect driving range, that is a genuine obstacle. And the third problem is the one almost nobody predicts: debris. All those open gaps between the spokes, the very thing that makes the tire work, are also open gaps that pack solid with mud and snow and gravel and road salt. And a tire loaded unevenly with frozen slush is an unbalanced tire, which you feel as a shake in the steering wheel at highway speed. Engineers are working on covers and shaped inserts to handle it. But it is an awkward problem, precisely because that openness is the entire point of the design. Then there is the deeply unglamorous reality that a tire is a legally regulated safety part. Any new design has to prove itself through years of testing before anyone is allowed to sell it for road use. And that clock runs in years, no matter how brilliant the product is. Michelin originally aimed to have its airless tire on sale by 2024, and it still has not landed as a normal product you can walk in and buy for your car, which tells you everything about how hard that final stretch really is. And to be fair to the companies grinding away at this, they are not being slow for no reason. Your tires are the only thing connecting a 2-ton vehicle carrying your family to the road, and they have to work in 100-degree heat and on sheet ice at 80 miles an hour after 5 years of being completely ignored, with a pothole waiting around any corner. Getting genuinely confident about that takes a staggering amount of testing, and nobody wants to be the company that got it wrong. But notice what is missing from that list of problems. Not one of them is a question about whether the idea works. Heat is a materials problem. Weight is a design problem. Debris is a shape problem. Every single one of them is the kind of thing that gets solved by building a few million of something and watching what breaks. Which is precisely the thing Chinese factories are already doing every single day on scooters and delivery carts, while everyone else runs careful trials. While you have been reading this, let me be blunt about what that gap actually means. Chinese plants are shipping airless wheels by the container load right now. Every month of production teaches them something a competitor can only learn from a test track. The distance between proven in trials and cheap in volume is closing on a factory floor in China, not in a laboratory in France or a proving ground in Germany. And every day that passes, the starting line for everyone else moves further back. The world is changing while you are reading about it. That is not hype. That is a supply chain running at full speed. So what is the honest answer to the question from the very beginning? No. You cannot go buy flat-proof tires for your truck this weekend. And anyone promising them by next spring is guessing. But what is actually true here is far more interesting than the hype. The technology works. It has already been proven at highway speed. The questions still on the table are heat and weight and price, not whether the whole idea holds together. And if the pattern holds, the road to your driveway almost certainly does not run through an expensive launch on a European luxury car. It runs through Chinese factories molding these things by the tens of millions for scooters and delivery fleets and warehouse vehicles until the process is dialed in and the cost has collapsed. And then it climbs up into passenger cars from underneath. That is how solar panels got cheap. That is how batteries got cheap, and there is no obvious reason tires would break the pattern. Here is the thing worth hanging on to. The tire on your car is a 130-year-old design whose greatest strength and its only real weakness happen to be the exact same thing. It is held up by air. Take the air out, and the flat tire stops existing as a concept. And that spare in your trunk becomes as strange a relic as a hand crank on the front of a car. The engineering to pull that off is essentially finished. What is left is the price. And the price gets decided in factories rather than laboratories. So here is my question for you, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. If airless tires showed up tomorrow at the exact same price as regular ones, would you put them on your own vehicle? Or is 130 years of air just too hard to give up? I honestly go back and forth on it. Tell me your call in the comments, and if you know somebody still changing a flat on the shoulder of a highway, send this video to them. And if this was worth your time, subscribe and stick around. There is more like this coming.